Coming up on show 911, Foxconn unveils an EV chassis, and if you haven't heard of them before, I'll tell you why this is important. Plus, on the podcast today, Tesla exporting their Chinese-made Model 3s here in Europe. More price cuts for those Model 3s, and Europe's cheapest EV finally gets its pricing. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. It's Monday, 19th of October. My name is Martin Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you haven't got to. Well, thank you as always to myev.com for helping me make the show. It's the first marketplace that you'll find if you're in the USA. If you check out myev.com, only on their cars, with plug sockets on, run by a team of EV passionate advocates, and they're there to help you as well as connect buyers and sellers and teach you about electric cars. So, lead story today, Foxconn. Who are they and why is this important? Foxconn is the Taiwanese electronics giant. They're a contract manufacturer, and if they're known for one thing, it's probably for putting the Apple iPhone together. Not just the iPhone, but Apple products. They've rolled out an EV platform. In other words, the skateboard design, the underpinnings, ready for someone to design, well, whatever they want and stick it on top. It's part of a push to become a manufacturer of electric car components, and we've heard the name Foxconn bandied around EVs for a while. They're a supplier of Tesla, done a deal with GM that we've talked about on this here podcast many months ago. But at the unveiling in Taipei, Foxconn's chairman Liu Yongwei said he targets a 10% share of the global EV market at 2025. Now, a 10% share of the global EV market is massive, and that's their plan. According to Autoblog, the chassis is described as being open source with customizable elements, including size, wheelbase, suspension type, and battery size. Partner automakers can fine-tune it to their exact needs, and Foxconn will be the ones assembling it for them. Well, the company additionally said it plans to introduce a solid-state battery for EVs in 2024 that would be superior to the lithium-ion electric car batteries. And research around solid-state has really always been 5 years away for the last 20 years. You know, I spend a reasonable amount of time in this EV world, and there's a few people saying that there's two magic bullets: solid-state batteries and hydrogen. And I don't sign up to either of them without recognizing that both are on a development path. But 2024, well, 3 years away to commercialize a solid-state battery would be... they'd be the first. I mean, Toyota are talking about it as well, but they're nowhere near. But they've been talking about it forever. So if they do, it would be a very interesting move for them to make, but with recent advances in lithium-ion battery cells, it's not the bigger jump as it used to be, but still would be a headline grabber. Financial Times says the world's biggest contract electronics manufacturer will become the Android of EVs. Interesting. Saying at an event over the weekend in reference to the open source operating system through which Google created a massive part of the global smartphone industry. Analysts say Foxconn is seeking to replicate their long-established dominance in the global manufacturing of PCs and smartphones, the largest electronics category by shipments over the past 30 years. And they want to take all of that knowledge and move it into making EVs. Mega news today. This is huge. We've known they've been for a while announcing smaller battery projects, but to do this is a huge piece of news and should worry anybody who is in the EV space, because Foxconn is a company that knows how to build things, know how to build consumer products for other people as well. They are very, very good at it. And if they turn their attention and their investment and their time to making a platform for EVs that other companies can come along and put different things on top of, it's a really serious piece of news today. And again, it shifts the balance of power away from the established automakers, the companies that for 100 years plus, I mean, you think about those kind of established, those long established names in the automobile industry, like Porsche, like a name like Porsche, 89 years old, a name like Harley Davidson, 100 and what? How old's Harley? 115 years old, right? Those names that have been around over 100 years, all of a sudden, facing an attack from a direction which they didn't think was coming. It's all because of EVs. And, personally, I find it exciting because I don't spend too long worrying about what those big established car companies are going to do because they're full of smart people and they'll work it out. But what I am excited about is new sectors and new industries coming into the world of electric vehicles that, well, they might think differently. Well, there you go. That's coming full circle on that story. The company that makes Apple products and thinking different. One for Apple historians there. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers. Sorry, I went full-on Apple geek nerd then with my anorak on. Zip, let's move on. Tesla saying today they're exporting the Chinese-made Model 3 to more than 10 European countries, and it starts this month. Now, people are blown away by this news because I think, I'm speculating here, I think because Elon Musk once said, and bearing in mind, a week in Tesla is a long time. Elon said months ago, maybe years ago, that every car made in China will be sold in China. So, fast forward a long amount of time. I'm not surprised that plans have evolved. Well, they're joining a growing number of car makers using China as an export hub for EV, says Reuters. Tesla started delivering vehicles made at its Shanghai factory earlier this year. For customers, they're exporting the Chinese-made cars this month to Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland and more. Elsewhere, German rival BMW is exporting its iX3 made in China, being sold around the world, made at a joint venture plant in China to Europe. Daimler is shifting production of their smart brand cars to China. Cars like the Spring by Dacia, they're being made in China and sold all around the world. And that's not even the endemic Chinese companies. Well, Tesla's manufacturing director of the Shanghai Gigafactory, Song Yang, said in an interview with local reporters, and I quote, "We hope to serve global customers as a global factory." And that is definitely underway. Really interesting. The Model 3 Standard Range Plus, by the way, coming out of China, that's the one that's got the new battery pack in. And for many people, they presumed it was worse because it's the lithium iron phosphate chemistry in the cells and not using the cylindrical cells that every Model 3 and Model Y has been made with so far. The LFP batteries are a diversion from their typical roadmap. They are less energy dense, less performance, but actually for the Standard Range Plus, you don't need that performance that gets you 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. 170 watt hours per kilogram in a pack that I think in the Standard Range Plus is a 55 kilowatt hour pack. Tesla tend to not only play down, but guard pretty carefully. They never talk about their kilowatt hour packs anymore, unlike it used to be on the back of the badge of every car. But the Standard Range Plus is 55 kilowatt hours. I understand why they don't say that number because it's dwarfed by many of its rivals, the Korean cars and what have you, they have 64 kilowatt hour packs, etc. So the Model 3 has a smaller pack than most, and we know how Tesla likes to win the battle of numbers, and it does. It will go further than those cars because it's more efficient, but they just never talk about the pack size. 55 kilowatt hours is actually, in terms of range, slightly higher than the old chemistry, about 5%. So whether they're putting more cells into this or they've just worked out more efficiencies. Recent reports about the early deliveries to customers as well of these new Model 3s are that they're being advised to charge to 100% once a week for battery state of health. Again, a mind-blowing thing for Tesla fans. And no, my tongue isn't in my cheek there, as it normally is, because Tesla have always said never charge to 100% because it's not good for battery health and state of health, because unlike other car makers that leave a big old buffer, so 100 on the dashboard isn't really 100. That's not, Tesla pretty much give you all the battery. So I wonder if the chemistry there, I don't know, I wonder if the chemistry there is more resilient and can be charged to 100%, or whether they've put a buffer into it. I don't know, maybe they're doing that and just putting a bit of battery safety and health and life into the battery, doing it that way. Well, the Model 3 is shipping from China, not California anymore, and the Model 3 got a price cut in Norway. I'm not sure if these two stories being adjacent have anything to do with each other, but Maybe they do. The price of the Model 3 Performance hasn't changed. That is still $53,000 equivalent, but the price of the Standard Range Plus has just gone down from about $46,000 equivalent to $42,500 equivalent, says Clean Technica. Norway is by far the top market in the world for EV market share, but the Model 3 is not number one in Norway. After the first 3 quarters of the year, the Model 3 is down in number 5, behind the Audi e-tron, the Volkswagen e-Golf, the Hyundai Kona EV, and indeed the Nissan Leaf. Yes, there is life outside of just one car brand. Of course, it rules the US market, but over here in Europe, a little more nuanced of a picture in some places. And so if you're interested in the Norwegian market, I recommend the Saturday special interview show that I put out over the weekend, talking to one of the leading figures and thinkers in the Norwegian EV industry. He's been doing it over 10 years. Was there when the very first chargers were going in. Jan from emobilitynorway.com. It was a long interview as well, and I really picked his brains on what we can learn from why 3/4 of all new cars sold have a plug. And what can we learn from that? Like, how can we speed up EV adoption and where the rest of us are listening? And so check on your podcast feed for that, or on YouTube, and I highly recommend it. Moving on, Tesla is pushing a new software update that increases the range of existing Model Y vehicles, and this confirms what I was asking. I was going to say speculating. I take no credit at all because it was a pure question. That when Tesla increased the range of the Model Y last week, would existing owners get that range bump? Yes, it looks like is the answer. A chap called Eric, an owner of a Model Y, got the update and sent the info to Electrek that his car range increased to 325 miles. Earlier today, Tesla increased the range of the Model Y long range from 316 to 325. Not the first time that Tesla has increased the range of existing vehicles through a simple software update. Not the first time that any car maker has done that. Other EV makers have increased the range, but I think Tesla did it in style. 9.5% increase on some of those Model 3s and the Model Y, getting a bump a bit smaller, but ones that are out there in the market already have the hardware to take this increase, and that's great news for anyone that's bought one of those Model Ys already. Just another really fantastic piece of EV news that shows they're just better than old cars. All right, moving on. Another story from last week. The Dacia Spring, Dacia being the Romanian cheap bit of Renault. Initial prices of what they promised would be the most affordable car in Europe are now appearing, and the first units are on sale in Hungary. They were pre-ordered with a price of €17,800, and that price before any subsidies, but with VAT in Hungary, 27%. Yowzers. After subsidies, the price drops to €11,000, says Pedro at Push EVs. Now, I was speculating, and I really was speculating last week, that I think the price of the Dacia Spring in many markets will be between €13,000 and €15,000. So I got that one wrong. It's even cheaper. Amazing news. €11,000 for a brand new EV, says Pedro at Push EVs. Unfortunately, we don't know if the first units had DC fast charging, which, well, the early limited series ones tend to be the higher spec ones. What am I talking about? Well, yeah, it comes with 6.6 kilowatt AC charging. If you want DC fast charging, you've got to pay extra for that. Would you like a bit of air conditioning, sir? That'll be extra. Electric door mirrors, show us your wallet. It really is a good quality. I mean, Dacia is a fine brand, actually. They've really done some good things over here in the UK with their brand values and being known for being cheap, but like good. Like, it's, you're not going to be showing it off to your mates, but that's not the point of the brand, right? It's a way to get a new car for €11,000, and that's with 27% VAT. Wowzers, Hungary. And so you get Apple CarPlay, you get Android Auto, you get 4 adult seats, you get 300 litres of boot space, you get some 7-inch touchscreens inside the car. Look, it comes with tech. It comes with a 27.4 kilowatt hour, but 26.8 kilowatt hour usable. So, not the biggest battery in the world. 140 miles on the combined cycle. And I mention combined cycle because, look, these cars will mostly be driven around towns and cities. It's not a road trip car. Could you do a road trip in it? You could. They'll be used around towns and cities. And That's exactly what they're for. I love this story because more EVs are coming out as the market gets more mature. There's EVs coming out that are just spreading into, both ends of the spectrum, like Porsche Taycans, new Tesla Roadsters, new Model S Plaid. That's great if you got the money to spend, and congratulations if you have. We'll come on to the Porsche in a bit. But also the cheaper end, like 11,000 euros. That is mega. And you're not done yet, because I found EVs to be cheaper to insure. Not everyone's experience, but me, 42-year-old guy, we have a driveway and a garage, but the car isn't garaged at night. So, honest on the insurance form, of course. And so, never had an accident, 20 years driving license, blah, 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 blah. But still, our EVs are dirt cheap. The cheapest cars we've ever insured. Hands down. And that'll be the case, I hope, with the Dacia. And running costs. Like, you know what, if you charge at home, and you probably will with only AC charging at 6.6 kilowatts, if you're charging at home, if you're charging overnight, if you put yourself on an electric tariff that is cheap overnight, then your motoring is almost free for the time that you have the car. And you can't say that about petrol and diesel prices, which only go in one direction. Yes, you guessed it, it's up. Well, moving on. According to the VW ID4 reservation holders talking on the forums, the first cars are expected in the US in the final week of the year. Week 52, that is December 24th. My goodness, what a Christmas present this will be if your VW dealer calls you up and says, your shiny new car is here, and you say, great! We're 500 miles away visiting relatives for Christmas. No, seriously though. Volkswagen is calling and emailing customers about their upcoming delivery, says Inside EVs. Those will, of course, be the first edition cars. They're imported from Germany. Local production doesn't start until 2022, isn't it, in the US? The Chattanooga plant. But still, you will get a lovely Christmas present if you are a first reservation holder of the ID4. And of course, actually interestingly, you'd be eligible for the $7,500 federal tax credit in early 21, whereas if you get your car in January, you're delaying it by a year, I think. Anyway, hey, I'm like the least expert in US tax credit affairs, so correct me if I'm wrong. It's fine. I'm thousands of miles away. I have a good excuse. Talk about Porsche Taycan next. There's a good bit of news around this. They're a strong seller around the globe in its debut year, and the company's announced total sales for the first 9 months of this year, of course, with COVID, when nobody was buying too many cars. 11,000 of them were sold, says Auto123.com. Best news for the Porsche is the Taycan sales are actually picking up steam. That's not a straight line. It's going up. During Q3 of this year, pace of production picked up. Sales rose to 6,500 units. That's almost 10% of all Porsches sold. I know, right? The sales total is more than twice the previous quarter. I'll pop a link in the show notes if you want to read more. Hey, staying with Porsche, by the way, a car that I'm really interested in. Taycan is, firstly, too expensive and no use to me at all. I can't put a child seat in that. The Porsche Macan is of more interest. I don't know why. Still can't afford it. Obviously, the rain and fog didn't help our spy photographers, says Motor1.com, but they did get some spy shots of the new Macan EV. Zero emissions. It looks almost like a Cayenne coupe. It's the same size, I'm guessing, as a Tesla Model Y, if you can picture that in your head. So it's that kind of SUV, but not large SUV, not like a BMW X5. It's that kind of crossover SUV shape. It's hard, isn't it? These are spy pictures, and there's camouflage on. The Macan Electric will go on sale in 2022, and Porsche investing more than $64 million in the expansion of their facility and a new body shop. Final story, and the Nürburgring is the place where all good hot hatches go to be tested, regardless of what powers them, and the spy photographers sent a new batch of photos showing the new Elborn wearing the Cupra badge. Seat is the Spanish bit of VW. Cupra is the performance bit of them, and it will be Cupra that put this car on the market. The Elborn was going to be a Seat, now it's going to be a Cupra, and it's basically the VW ID3 with a load more performance and styling, and it looks sharp, and it's a hot hatch, and Inside EVs say we don't know how powerful it's going to be. but its peak output could be 302 horsepower, four-wheel drive, 77 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and a range of 310 miles, and super rapid fast. I'll pop a link to the show notes if you'd like to read more. So look out for that Twitter competition that we're running this week with myself and Derek Riley from the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel. Bag yourself a £100 Amazon voucher or equivalent in your local currency, or donate to charity. All you got to do is follow both of us, and all the details are in the tweet. I've pinned it at the top of my Twitter if you want to have a look. But nice little way of celebrating 900 shows last week on this podcast, and thank you to Derek for his support. All the previous shows are in the archive, and if you can ever leave a little review on Apple Podcasts, it does help as other people see it. So yeah, thank you to Derek from the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel. He says some cracking cars on that channel, but I don't know how he does it. Who does he know? Amazing. Check it out on YouTube. Hi to Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, of course, Avid Technology, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, nationalcarcharging.com and aloharcharge.com. Hello to Richard at rsimons.co.uk. They are the electric vehicle specialists here in the UK and not far from me. If you are in the market for a new EV, have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And do remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.